my spiel about the the opener. It looks like I'll just go ahead and kick it off. It looks like we have all old timers here, and then a ton. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different 8, 9 AI bots here today. So that's fantastic. Welcome, AI Revolution. Very quickly, this is the 17th of September, 2024, Climate Action and Accounting Special Interest Group meeting. For just it's kind of standard approach, we want to remind everybody that we do follow an antitrust policy. If that has not been reviewed, please review that. We also have a Hyperledger code of conduct that we follow. So if that's not been reviewed, highly recommend that you review that. We've got a great presentation today on the work being done by Jeff Privich. And very excited to hear about it. This will be pretty informal. I think, Jeff, you might have, do you have slides? Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I got slides.
Okay.
You don't have to share the screen, but it's more of show what we're doing, and then some of the information that some of the folks from the Carbon Accounting Group can give us to help us along, make sure we're presenting this correctly.
Okay, so I will, I'll just go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that you can share. I believe David has it set up so that you can share your screen if you want to.
Sure, it might take me a minute. I've got all these things on here.
That's fine. David, I guess if you have any kind of questions about how to get it up.
You should have the access to share, but if not, let me know.
Okay, we can keep going in the meantime.
Okay. Well, Alfonso, Tom, I'd love to hear what you are both working on. It's been a while. I'd love to kind of have a little cross SIG communication. We'd love to hear what projects you're working on, what's the newest. I mean, I guess kicking off, Alfonso, if there's any new developments with the standards working group, I'd love to hear that as well.
Well, we're continuing with the ontology, and we had good luck with the Gitcoin. Remember, you introduced Sal, or Sol. Well, we applied, and we got accepted.
Oh, great!
And we didn't get a lot of money.
Oh, okay.
It was a really small contribution. About $13.
Okay, all right.
But with the quadratic magic wand, it increased to about 500 in one case and 600 in the other. So it's about $1,100. But the good thing about it is that we got exposure. So people are starting to say, hey, we want to know more. Okay. And I think that's although we do need the money, that's a good result. And I'm pushing for having more frequent meetings because our pace has been good but slow.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what we have to report.
Okay.
So your option was quite good. We thank you for it, and we are in Gitcoin, and we shall continue there with more funding whenever there is something related to climate.
Now, Alfonso, I heard you say $13, and at some point I heard you say several thousand.
No, not thousands, hundreds.
Okay.
Okay. The magic wand of quadratic funding turned 13 into 500.
Okay.
In one category and 600 in another category. Climatic solutions had 2 categories, and we applied to both. So that we have our wallet and we have cryptos there. Okay. So whenever that is needed, it will be used. Okay.
All right.
There is also a good work of interns that were funded by NOVA Institute. That's Christian's work. Okay. And I think it would be appropriate for Christian to present that when we have our planned presentation here at the SIG. I
That'd be
think that was for
fantastic.
October or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's when we talked about doing it,
Okay.
which is coming up now. So maybe I should reach out to Christian, or would
Yeah,
that be a good
yeah.
idea?
Well, you're welcome to.
I'll CC you and reach out to you both and just see where you are and what you feel about it. And
Okay.
October, it could be October, it could be November, whatever makes the most sense.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
Fantastic. Great. Well, great work. Look forward to hearing being updated. It's been a minute, so looking forward to see what the progress that's been made.
Progress is there also in the wiki.
Yep. I need to get into that. Before Jeff, we hop into your presentation, Tom, did you have anything that you could share about the work that you've been doing?
Sure. So two things. One, you're going to hear about it with Jeff here. So that's the main one of the main things. And then also we have a little blog series here going on this year. We're going to be publish a blog on traceability this month, done by Alicia Noel, or led by that. And then next week or next month, we're hoping to have one on the use of NFTs in supply chain and trade finance. And maybe even there's a new, or at least it was newer to me, concept called DPIM, Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. So that might even be brought into a little bit to the blog entry. And Toby, and I can't remember Toby's last name, has agreed to work on that in October. And then I think we're going to have one on IoT and stuff like that Jeff's going to work on for November. So those are the major things that we're working on right now. And then I guess we'll also be changing over. I see Jeff, you have it there already. Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust instead of Hyperledger. So that might be the good segue.
That's a good segue.
Hyperledger. So, and Sherwood mentioned Hyperledger code of conduct, which means we don't have to follow it then, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll have to look at David for that.
LF Decentralized Trust.
Good point. Good point.
I
Yeah.
was shortening that somehow.
So we are in a
Or just call
position.
it-
Yeah,
why
we
don't we just
are in
call
a
it Web3?
position. Sorry, not to interrupt. I was just gonna say, yeah, we will be talking about Hyperledger stuff for a while now. So yeah, we kind of envision it will take a while for everything to transition over. So yeah, there'll still be talk about Hyperledger for a bit, but we'll get there.
So is that really going to be the name that people use, that whole mouthful, or they're going to just say like Web3 or something?
For the organization,
Yeah, this LF Decentralized Trust.
we could abbreviate LFDT. I think that will probably get
Okay.
used frequently.
And it's not like Hyperledger wasn't a mouthful anyway, too.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
same number of syllables, I guess, right? Hyperledger.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it also, the cool thing about it is that it makes us all old school.
Yeah,
Now
that's totally. Oh yeah,
we're
absolutely.
Hyperledger. We were back in the days of Hyperledger, you know?
Someone did ask me, why does it say hyper? I understand the ledger. What's the hyper part? I don't know. It's a marketing. It seemed to throw a person up like hyper. What's hyper?
Extreme ledger.
And like, yeah, come on. This will.
Yeah.
Anyway, for people that haven't seen this yet, I do attend Sherwood's when I can. The carbon accounting SIG. One of the things we're looking at on supply chain that kind of fits into what the carbon accounting group's doing with their emissions network and so forth is looking at something from a somewhat technical perspective of companies obviously want to decarbonize their supply chain. It's becoming more and more important because companies have given promises out. And a good example is this company Sherwood, you might know this. It's called Symbiosis. It's a joint venture between Google, Microsoft, and some other, maybe Meta, who made promises 5 years ago that they were going to decarbonize their supply chains. And not only that, they were going to take out all the carbon out of the atmosphere that they've ever put in it. And they put a 2035 timeline. Well, here we come into 2025. And they're saying, whoops, we got a problem here. not only need to and I've seen this on LinkedIn articles and so forth, and so they've come in, so we need to do something. And so they're sinking lots of money into how are we going to do this. But even more importantly is they don't even know how they're going to track it. How do we know we're decarbonizing our supply chains? We're not going to be able to invest money and change supply chains from day one, but we're going to have a baseline to get to net zero. How do we track progress? How do we monitor where, like granularity, where in the supply chain are our biggest emitters? We may use a different vendor if they can't, if they're let's say a transport company, we may use different companies based upon their ability to decarbonize. So decarbonization is coming really big, and a lot of it is a lot of these promises that were put out by oil companies and so forth about in 2030 and 2035 to decarbonize your supply chains. And so they've, Microsoft and Google and so forth have said, we haven't done a thing. Our shareholders are on us about this, we promised it. And so I started thinking about it, and our team started thinking about this somewhat, and what would you do to put something in front of a company like that? And I'm not saying we're doing this on this project, but how do you do this? How do you track decarbonization? How do you implement it? What are the tools that are out there? Is it in the cloud, and so on and so forth? And so I don't know how many architects are on this call. I used to be a solution architect and a technical architect for a global company, British Petroleum, for decades. And so we often came up with what we call reference architectures. And the slide that you're going to see, and I'm not going to go through all these slides because some of this is some of the work we're doing. There's like 60 slides, and it will never be this big. But we're trying to get information about this. This is what they call a reference architecture, where you could give this to a company and say, this is how you would implement decarbonization of your supply chain, from tracking, scenarios, what if analysis, progress tracking. You can look at it in real time. You can look at it after the fact as supply chains keep running. This is how, if you have IoT devices that are sending data in every second, this is how you would hold it, track it. Should it hook into other systems like I think it's Hyperledger, part of the carbon emissions network. Does it feed that, or do we get data from emissions network? Because again, blockchain advantages are immutability of the data. So as it comes in, it gets recorded on the blockchain. And how do you handle big volumes, things like that? So this is what we call a reference architecture. This is how you would do it. But the focus of this is how you would do this using Hyperledger. So Fabric, Indy, so on and so forth, the Explorer with the dashboards. If you want to use open source software, here are the advantages of open source software, but these components is how you would do this. And so you have to look at this information I'm about to put up as this is if you're going to do this in the future, here's a reference architecture that you could follow to implement this using Hyperledger projects. Here's an advantage. Now there's other products out there, I'm sure, that they could wedge together, but the fusion of all the Hyperledger I keep calling them products, but this is why Hyperledger is an advantage to do this. Here is a reference architecture. Some of it you'll see on here, the technical part is somewhat detailed. And so this is where we're coming from, the supply chain. Now, we have in the supply chain, SIG, Tom, Alicia, myself, and others have Andrea, and I think Mr. Boswanger does too. But they have expertise in supply chains, and so we know the supply chain piece. But are we missing something in our carbon accounting scenario here, and how you would do things that that need to be exposed, like the scopes 1, 2, 3? How would you do that? And so there's some content in there, and there's about 70 slides. I'm going to only show you about 9 that we need to put in front of somebody and say, does this make any sense? What are we missing? And going back to my architecture world, if you get architects on the phone or experts on the phone, you start rambling like I'm doing right now, it's very hard for them to sit down and go, wow, what are you doing? I was the same way. You need to take something hard and drop it in front of them and say, does this make sense? And they can go through that and say, oh, okay, wait, no, not here. Oh, yeah, this makes sense, but you need to add this, this, and this. And so that carbon accounting expertise is what is needed in here, because we're showing how you would do this in a technical sense. but from a technical perspective, how is this rolling forward on carbon accounting? What are we missing? And so the joint call that we're having here today, and I'll just show some basics of what we have on here, give you a flavor of it, is how do we, some of the questions I have is how do we put together, as these slides develop, who do we put this in front of that can look at this and say, again, from a carbon accounting standpoint, does this make sense? Do we collect all this IoT data? Are you doing it somewhere else on emissions network? Do we, oh wait, you're missing this and this. They would, a customer would like this, and this, and aha, okay, we gotta plug that in there. Does it make sense to highlight something that we've said? Some of the experts on this call could say, emissions network tracking, no, you never need to really look at that. And so you can take that out. Just a variety of stuff. IoT data that comes in, I think there's a reference to it, and I don't have it in my notes in front of me, but I think there is a standard on how the data comes across. I don't know if that's correct or not. And so how does that feed into the system? And I know that I've been on some of the calls where the discussion has been come up about IoT data and standards. And so it wasn't a standards group, it was this one. So that's where we're coming from right now on this. And what I can start doing, I think you can see the first screen, and it's just a background for us. But again, just give an example. This is us sitting down and saying, why is decarbonization becoming more and more in the news? Why do you want to monitor it? And so I've got some bullet items on here. Are some of these bullet items 100% correct? I think they are, but I'm not so sure. But the folks on this call may be able to look down here and say, well, no, don't say this, then say this. Just that critique of what we have. And now again, this is only, what is it, Tom, maybe 2 months into this? I mean, you can scrape away August because everybody was on vacation. So this is only, the content you're gonna see has only been generated probably over the last 4 or 5 working weeks. So
Just
really new into this thing.
Do you want us to provide feedback as you go through this, or you want us to wait to the end?
Both.
Okay.
It makes more sense if somebody interrupt and say,
Yeah.
because I'm going to show screens and say, here's our ideas around this. Anybody on the phone.
So
somebody's
for
taking
this-
notes, which is good with the bots, and so we can go back to notes and then reference what people have put in.
Right. So I'd say for this initial opening slide, and I don't know if you covered this in the first 2 slides, but first of all, with this slide, this is a super text heavy, so I would break this into
Right.
at least two slides.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's a good point. Some of these slides you're going to see have been, as I've been doing work and input from others, I've been jamming stuff into a slide, not a Word document, but into the PowerPoint itself, and I'm slamming stuff in there, knowing that later on readability we're going to come back with.
Yeah,
need to
perfect.
Look at this and
Yeah,
say,
so you already know.
this needs to be cut this way. No, put
Yeah.
the slide up in here, and you'll see me skip some where they're raw notes that I put in there, and so.
Yep. Okay.
But good point. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is 3 topics, like global
Yep.
government legislation has become more focused on GDP accounting, why focus on supply chains, and then carbon accounting solution available to meet global government regulations. Now, for this part right here, the very bottom part, I think like one big narrative is that I think is really, I think it is an easy way to make people lean forward in their seats by describing why open source distributed ledger technology is really the only realistic solution in my mind for being able to develop a solution that is capable of rapidly enabling scope 3 of a supply chain to kind of share information, because at a very high level, share information in a useful way to really decarbonize the supply chain. And that's because the standard way is a centralized database. In a supply chain, you might have, several thousand different vendors who are always changing. And so it's a logistical nightmare for one company to, with a centralized database to be able to kind of capture and track that information. An open source distributed ledger means that it's a shared database where everybody is able to kind of input their parts. It's permissioned within whatever Hyperledger. So there are protections against what information is shared, but ultimately it enables the 3,000 different vendors to input and manage their piece of the pie, and that information be shared in a dynamic way. So it's essentially and open source enables, there's so many different industries, or they're going to have slightly different needs. Open source enables them to develop their own solutions, to contribute to this larger framework. And so it is, in my mind, like it's the solution to this very sticky problem that nobody's able to figure out. And the reason nobody's able to figure it out is they're trying to do centralized databases, and it's like using, a hammer to try to screw a screw, right?
Yeah, and I've got some of what you've said down in some of those slides that get me thinking to put this together. I talk about Fabric's data channels and its state variables and its state channels where you can keep data together, but you have channel members only see certain data and protect data from themselves, but collecting it all together, as you mentioned. And so I've got those in technical pieces, and that always is a problem with a slide presentation like this, where what we need is what you just talked about, is up front to get people's real interest around Hyperledger, because this is what I was trying to articulate, but I actually steered away from this because I got too involved in the technical piece. But this right here is not, this is a crummy slide. It reminds me that there needs to be some articulation on why we use Hyperledger Fabric, besides the fact it's open source with stuff that you mentioned. And so this was like as a reminder slide to me to say why, but I then start breaking down into just honing stuff together and just trying to piece it together and trying to put things together so that people like yourself can look at it and say, oh, hold on, yeah, I see what you got here, but let's do this on a presentation piece. Let's get people really interested up front. So
Hey, Jeff.
So, yeah.
Jeff, can I ask you a question? Sherwood, how widely is it accepted your statement? I like what you said that, need to use blockchain because it's the only way to rapidly capture scope 3. With scope 3 and rapidly kind of being the key things that I took away from that statement. How widely do you think that that's accepted? That thought that blockchain is the only way to do it. I mean, you said nobody's figured this out really. So I know you believe, we believe, but it's not like blockchain is taking the world by storm here. So we still got some selling to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that blockchain is kind of gone, like from the technology adoption standpoint, right? It's gone through the early kind of exuberance, and it's kind of like moving into a trough. And what's happening is people are starting to develop, over a period of time, real kind of applications that work. I feel like how broadly accepted is what I'm saying, not very broadly, and that's why it's not happening, right? So in going out and talking to these folks, you're the expert, and you need to help them understand why. It's not like scope 3, the solutions that are out there. I've seen what's out there, and it's super clunky, and it's not working very well.
Okay, got it. So there are people still trying to do it other alternative ways, but hey, we think we got a better way to do it, which I agree with you that is probably a better way to do it.
One of those slides, you'll see the one I have up right now, I have in red, the fact that what's being talked about right now is we need input from the carbon accounting group. I got digital twin functions, but then again, I know there's a hole, like in a slide like this, there's a hole here, and that's why I have it in red. This needs to be more articulated. So, I can bounce. I was going to bounce through some of these, but I have advantage in here, specific to Fabric. Why Fabric is advantage of building this as a digital twin. Again, some of this wording again, especially on the titles, is going to change a lot. Again, these are my notes, and so I'm putting stuff into blocks. Again, this is very wordy. Doesn't have any graphics on it and so forth. So again, just going through this slide pack it's a lot of it's very focused on a reference architecture piece, but it needs that carbon accounting piece to really take off. And so I'm throwing things in here, advantages that Hyperledger projects provide. In the simulation, and in some respect, one of the bigger questions I have in here for everybody is, again, I'm just going through the slides real quick on some of these. I'm going to go through maybe the front ones, but why? This is a classic one. Why build one when some of these digital twins can be supplied by the OEM, and that there's detail on why you never do that. So again, but this starts. I got to move these slides around because this is a high-level solution architecture, which has to will change, especially these pieces over here. If I want to make this a little bit bigger. And so again, this is our original scope that we put in about data, and so this all has to be vetted. And I believe most of this stuff is correct. My concern is there's things that are missing. And we're getting into real detail here, but again, if somebody wants to delve down in, again, these slide positions are going to move around, but this explains, using Hyperledger projects, how you would implement this. Again, this is a reference architecture, and someone could say this is a blended solution and so forth, so the detail's not in there. One of the this piece here, the setup, again, don't worry about the format of these things, and I even move the slides around. It says 404, and it's really this is the first one that pops up. But even trying to explain how to use a digital twin to a firm, how to set this up, and there's 4 slides on how to set it up, and I read it a few times and thought some of the carbon accounting folks would know how to set this up because there are other tools out there. Am I getting too deep into this thing?
Jeff, let me just backing up for a second. Can you help me understand who the audience is going to be for this and what exactly you're trying to accomplish?
So the audience, when we get the slides in order, the audience is probably the first 10 slides. Audience is going to be folks that have to do carbon accounting in an organization that has interest, and we have to do this. And how are we doing this?
I see.
It's on our plate. Detail about why companies are having to decarbonize, and then the other part of that is why Hyperledger projects have this advantage of enabling you to do this. So that's going to be like the first piece. Underneath it, though, is going to be somebody's going to take this then and say, how do you do this? And they're going to get their technical folks involved, maybe their solution folks involved, and say, here's this other piece here. Does this make sense in our organization? Here's these tools. This is exactly what these tools do. The Fabric does this. Indy does this. Explorer does this. And somebody would take that and say, let me look at Hyperledger Fabrics. Somebody's got a technical solution or a business solution and a technical solution on this piece. And then further down, there'll be another pack that explains some real detail about what's the data architecture in this thing. Again, I don't want to go in this thing, but the data architecture is important. What data comes in? Where do you store it? How do we get this data in here? Do we manually enter it? We have some feeds we can use.
Mm-hmm.
What are all the data sources? And so it's going to go from a higher level person through this thing to down to where it's not just all fluff. Underneath, you've got a technical architecture. This is how this thing actually works. Now, you can read it if you want to, carbon accounting folks in an organization, but you can give that to your technical folks, but it's all in one pack. And so right now it's kind of mixed up because I'm getting information, I'm doing research on certain pieces, and so I got to update these slides, and I'm moving slides around. So that's why I caution this is only a few weeks into this, and so as it's built out, a good point, Sherwood, you could say, don't have this in one slide, have it in 3 slides. Have a slide that is presented to a group that has to do carbon accounting, some business folks, some their environmental group in a large organization. And then if they say, hey, this sounds great, we need more detail on this, then maybe give them the other one and say, well, this is how you would do this from a solution perspective. Here's how you use Hyperledger projects. Fabric does this doesn't. Give them some detail to show that, oh, this isn't fluff, this stuff is out there. This is exactly how this works. And in a lot of the technical pieces that I have further down explain how Fabric, it's what you were talking about before is how does Fabric, the advantages of Fabric, especially around the channels and the state channels that allow the data to be seen by groups that are within that channel, but then overall the system sees all the data from auditing and perspective. So That format is going to take, I don't know, Tom, it's going to take another few months to put that all together, where we break this apart and decide some of these things of, how do we take this and put this forward? I will say one thing that's happened so far, and I think it's okay to say this, Tom, is there's actually another slide pack that I have that's got 3 slides. And in those 3 slides, you take this and you give it to an organization, a business, some firm, and say, this is how you do the supply chain decarbonization with Hyperledger projects. And it's down to 3 slides. And the reason why is because it was given to a firm, and they showed high interest off the 3 slides, and are essentially saying, give us a estimate of what to do to actually demo this. So it can be really carved down if we want to into something that simple, where the people making those calls say, we got to decarbonize the supply chain, we have interest in this. In 3 slides explain how you do this, why you use Hyperledger products, and then you can go from there on the deep dive. Because
Do you have the 3 slides?
You get people interested, and let me move this stuff out of the way.
Yeah, so I think it's basically, it's 2 presentations or maybe 3 presentations in one. And the first one, thinking about your audience, this is going to be a non-technical person,
Right.
that you just have to communicate the high level. Part of the narrative that I shared, I think is kind of part of that, helping them understand conceptually why this makes their job easier, and why it's just a better approach. And then what you can do is, there's 2 approaches. You can have 2 separate presentations, or what I like to do is have like an addendum or an annex where I'll drop all the technical slides in. So as questions come up, I can dive into individual slides, but then you'll have a second meeting with their technical folks. And that might be more like a roadmap slide, where you kind of show what the different SIGs are doing, or what the projects are that it could kind of be related to the work that they're doing, and or dive into the technical stuff, that some of the more technical stuff that you have here.
Yeah, because we're facing a couple of I call them challenges. And one of the challenges is this whole thing around the digital twin, and people go, yeah, I think I've heard of that, but I don't even know what that is. So why are we doing a digital twin? So they kind of steer away from everything, going, what's a digital twin? What's a digital twin? Then you have to explain to them about digital twins, and I think that's on this other one here, of why are we using a digital twin? Why are we even doing, we're not just loading data into Fabric. This is actually a digital twin where we got baselines, live data coming in. You're doing real-time tracking of where things should be on a very granular level. If you want to go that granular level, if you don't, you can do it at a higher level. But that's really what a digital twin is. And I think the digital twin seems to, I don't know, you can comment on that, Tom, with that firm. There's a lot of interest in this a digital twin. Yeah, we heard of those for carbon accounting. That sounds interesting. Decarbonization. And then we have to say, why are we doing a digital twin? Why aren't we just taking the data and jamming it in Fabric and leaving it in the blockchain? What's the digital twin do? So we have to explain what that is. Just like airplane engines, they all have digital twins. This is how much wear and tear we expect on them, and as IoT measures that, they see whether or not they got to do it earlier or later, what's going on with the plane engine. But it's the same concept here. And so we have to explain to them a digital twin. We have to explain to them the fact that we're going to use blockchain technology and Hyperledger. Then we have to explain to them how this helps them from a technical perspective, track decarbonization of their supply chain. So there's like 3 tiers. And so that's why we keep seeing, we see slides like this that say digital twin, blockchain, measuring. It's like, wow, we have to squeeze this down somehow. So
Yeah,
this
it's a
is one that was
challenge.
presented to somebody, and we did this, and maybe Tom, you can comment on it because he showed it, and based off of this, well, they actually saw the first part, but it wasn't as big as what I was showing you before. And then they asked us, "Can you squeeze this down?" And we did this, and they have interest. I'll just say they have interest. So yeah, that's where on the other slide, somewhere we have to start from my standpoint, I have to start delving into the technical piece because you gotta make sure that people don't see this as fluff. You can't have the business folks get all shiny objects put in front of them and thrown in front of their IT folks and say, come on, look at this junk that this people are proposing. So that's gotta be pretty clean, and we have that piece down. And I'll run through some of that stuff through some technical architects on Fabric and some of the other pieces, but I've been heavily focused on that bottom piece because the technical piece, because we got to get folks in Hyperledger scheduled up to give us input on these slides. And I know what I have on there is correct. I don't know what's maybe missing. So I got that. So that's been my focus. Now bringing the carbon accounting group and others kind of go up a level and start looking at this from a solution perspective. That's really where right now. But again, this was a slide that we showed a firm, and I changed it around quite a bit, and so it was really short. And it's not letting me get off the screen, which is interesting. So, okay. I'm hitting escape and I'm getting nothing. No. I don't know if anybody's got any other questions. I want to show, let me see here a second. I'm going to have to stop sharing for a second. It seems like my screen is frozen up. Yeah, it is.
Looks like Alfonso has his hand raised.
Yes. I put it in the chat, Jeff, but you have a great material for at least 2 additional suggestions to the presentations that Sherwood gave. It would be good, maybe a short publication by the supply chain in trade finance SIG. Turn this into a publication. The other option would be, we are exploring that at our ontology working standards subgroup. It's a course, a short course that you have online, and maybe both the publication and the short course could be one of the first activities at LFVT, okay, for climate actions. And if you opt for the course, of course, Learning Tokens is here to help you track the acquisition of skills that you would be providing there. Okay, so you have a publication, you have a course, and that is a standard material that is available there for anyone that comes in, interested.
So how involved would that be to set something like that up? So I like the idea of the publication out there. And I'll be honest, I've done a lot of scanning of the internet, LinkedIn, up and down, left and right. I have not seen one publication, one presentation, anything mentioned about ways to track decarbonization of supply chains. Nothing, which is shocking to me. There's nothing. There's nothing there today. Cloud offerings, nothing. It's all collected, put in spreadsheets after the fact, 2 months later, because maybe we have to report it. And it's all really focused on reporting. There's nothing to do with monitoring, trying to find out at a granular level where are our emissions, how to put in new baselines that say we've improved our decarbonization. We're not at net zero yet, but we can show you how we're going to get there through scenarios. There is absolutely nothing out in the marketplace that I have found, and I have searched for a couple of months. I even asked Gemini AI and OpenAI bots, do you know anything? Nope.
Well,
this is how you would do it. You would collect it against. I'm like, no. Is there any offerings? And so there's a real hole out there, which I'm shocked. And that's originally, I think, got myself interested, is Hyperledger could fill that gap by proposing a solution to something, saying, yeah, we know about decarbonization, we know about this, we know about that, but here is a way that you can do this with Hyperledger
Well,
Hyperledger software.
I
We
would,
have not put a publication out like you mentioned. We
I
haven't
would
done
suggest,
that.
I would suggest, two outlines, one for the publication and one for the course. And then submit those outlines to LFDT, okay, for the initial publication series. Okay.
Mhm.
We did that with GBBC, which is the Global Blockchain Business Council. We did that for learning tokens. And
Yeah, I attended that meeting you had,
Daniela
or that video conference you had.
and
I attended that,
GBBC accepted to have a joint publication. And so we submitted the outline. It was approved. Then we work on it, and eventually it's there. It's part of GBBC publications. So I think it would be good now that LFDT, I have to learn it. That's what I keep repeating. It would be good to have a series of publication. Another
Mhm.
example that comes to my mind, which is extremely nice and extremely didactic, is what Trust over IP, which is now one of our uh, uh, mates in LFDT. Trust over IP has a very nice interactive piece that teaches us what trust over IP is. And the moment you keep, poking at the different images, something else appears and something else appears. So what you said about they don't know what digital twin is, they don't know what this, well, put it together. Okay, put it together. A third option, besides the publication, the course, it's an interactive graphics set. Okay, that is there. Okay.
So
We're
when you've
doing,
done publications, have you published what the end state, or have you published progress toward the end state and have a series of publications?
whatever, just be
Okay.
clear what stage you are talking about. And it gives you a chance of continuing uh, uh, publications on your advances.
Yeah, interesting. Yep. Yep. Because right now, again, this is very fresh, but these ideas about going forward on this and getting it out there.
But I mean, I like very much the material that you show, and I think you have solid content to be shared. How
Mhm.
you share it is up to you, but I think we have uh, to think new ideas of publishing content.
And so you said interactive. What's the platform you're talking about with the interactive? You say interactive graphics
Uh,
or interactive
it's
presentations?
I don't know what platform they used. I'm referring to Trust over IP.
Ah, okay.
Trust
Okay.
over IP has an interactive graphics that explains what trust over IP is. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if they did it on their own or they use an existing platform. That I don't know. But what I do know is that it's extremely didactic and good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you give me a second, I'll check for it and share the link in the screen.
Do I have to stop? Do I have to stop mine?
Okay, let me.
Give me a second. Oh, there it finally popped up. Okay. I thought maybe I was, okay. thought I mean I was still sharing. Never mind. I'm good. We're all open. So you should be able to share. I thought maybe I had to stop sharing.
Okay, one model is there, and I'm going to give you the interactive demo. There are the two links, Jeff. It's a combination of a publication and a course, you know, in a much simpler, simplifies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But
Well, I'm not-
something like that might
Yeah, I'm
be
seeing the screen. Yeah.
might be helpful. And besides, we are together, Hyperledger and Trust over IP. We are together at under our new umbrella. So we are sister foundations. In Spanish, foundation is feminine. So we're sister foundations.
Like that.
It's la fundación, not el fundación.
So this first page on your website, is this so do you actually do you have to join it to click through to it, or I
No.
don't know, we don't have time for that now, but I see what you're okay.
At the bottom of the first page, it's the a link. It's a button
says
to the interactive demo. And if you go to that
Yeah, I see. Okay.
interactive demo, then what's very interesting.
I'm going to keep the screen up on mine. Right? This is interesting. This is something that we did in the supply chain SIG back in when was it, Tom? In the winter. I had written a desktop blockchain in Python, and I had it sitting out there, and I was showing people how blockchains work, and you could put coins and all kinds of stuff, and it was all written in Python, but it was a blockchain behind it. And so I wrote this thing over a year, playing around with some stuff for something else, and I ended up doing a demo, and we ended up turning it into a demo where it would run, and it was a supply chain and had AI attached to it, where AI would come up and say there's traffic in this area, maybe there's a new route you should go through, and there was a lot of IoT measuring things, and you would use commercial data sets transporting coffee across the ocean, things like that. And so that was somewhat interactive, but this is more, but that was more you sat back and you watched this interactive display occur of moving coffee from Ethiopia, a supply chain. It wasn't related to carbon, it was related to time. Where you're monitoring the supply chain, if there was something that was issued, if there was they're shooting at vessels in the Red Sea because of warfare, then you would go this other route and things like that. This looks more like, this is interesting, where user clicks and starts interacting that way.
And eventually you can get clicks.
How long
And
did it take you to put this together?
You're testing what the market is interested in.
Mm-hmm.
By tracing the clicks within your interactive infographics.
So how long did it take you to put this together? Are you using a software package?
I don't know about the software package. What I've followed for some time is the model of TOIP. And the model that they have is very interesting because it looks always technology and governance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they have really worked a lot in their model for a long time. Okay. And so it's a clear model.
Yeah, it looks like
That-
you're explaining decentralized identity in this thing here.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's why we are sisters.
Yeah.
No, we were adopted by Mama Linux.
Interesting.
Okay. I would have to leave 5 minutes before the hour, but if you need anything, Jeff, you have my
Yeah, I do.
email and my
Thanks.
WhatsApp.
Yep, that's what kind of stuff we're looking for, yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
So I don't have anything else at this point, Sherwood, and I think it's more along the questions of how do we keep the communication lines, well, they're open, but what's the best way to move forward on this, in your opinion? We keep collecting data and keep going along the route we are, and then start sorting out the detail that we have into something that can be reviewed by folks, the carbon emission experts and other folks out there, and then start packaging this up.
Yeah, I would say to the idea of having a couple slides and keeping it really simple and just having the high level narrative for an entry level conversation, I think that's really good, right? So, you know, you just when you're reaching out to somebody, it could even just be a 1-page leave behind, then having the high level narrative and thinking also when you're speaking to, for example, if you're speaking to sustainability experts, thinking about the information that's really important to them. You know, they know the pressures that they're receiving from the federal government.
Shareholders,
They,
yeah.
they know that most of their emissions are in scope 3. And so starting from there, you can kind of just open up and say, hey, you know, solving climate change primarily is the challenges of solving the scope 3 challenge. You know this, you know why it's really difficult. It's really difficult because you have several thousand people in your supply chain. How do you deal with this information that's always changing? Well, we have a solution to that, right? It's just very simply kind of speaking to what their challenge that they're facing is, get them leaning forward in their seats, and then you're sharing something new with them, right? You're basically saying that the challenge you're facing is because everybody's using a centralized approach to a decentralized problem, right? And so, you know, we're working with the Linux Foundation to, in you know, as much as possible, dropping in different companies that are involved tangentially, right? It doesn't have to be that they're specifically involved in scope 3, but that kind of just pique their interest and get them involved and get their technical people involved. Once their technical people are interested, then you dive into the details. But I would almost just totally stay away from the more technical stuff when you're talking to the initial people, because until you get to the technical people, it's going against the grain of your objectives. If you start diving into the technical stuff with somebody who's not technical, you're hurting yourself.
Right. Yep. And that's where this is all packed into one slide now. And so this is my ways of working right now. But thinking back on big systems, when I got involved in it, usually the vendor would come in or a solution provider would come in, something like this, and then you show it to like the level you're talking about, Sherwood, where people that are under pressure to do this, and we need to come with a solution on this. You know, you hear about Microsoft or some of these companies having to do this. Well, the CEO or the people in charge of this are hearing from their shareholders about where do you stand. We got to report this out. That gets filtered down to their management to say handle this somehow. And so they bring in something like this is brought in at a high level, and I've seen this take place. That this is how we can do this high level, and you get their interest and say, yes, you guys appear to have a solution for what we need, but we need now our technical folks to take a look at this thing. And so what materials do you have? And we'll set up another meeting. You talk to them, and so to show that you've got something. And actually, once that gets vetted, usually the company would say, can you set it up like this interactive, or bring it in and let's see how it works. Let our folks use it and then see how this actually works. And if it doesn't, then we'll buy it.
Right.
Or
this is a little bit different because you're basically saying you don't have to buy it. You can own it without buying it. All you have to do is build within it and build with the different people in your supply chain. So build
Yeah.
together, share the
And
cost.
even the platform, it's, you go out to somebody like a Kaleido and they got a platform for fabric there, and you can say, we'll go out there, you don't have to bring in servers and set up cloud things and so forth. So a lot of that's there already.
Yeah.
But that attention grabbing piece was like those 3 slides, and then I've been moving stuff up in that slide presentation as it becomes more business focused. I'll just
Yeah.
say business focused, and pushing the other stuff down. But I'm moving in stuff at this kind of speed all the time and trying to find stuff. And that's my slide pack of just ways I'm working as I collect information from folks in other studies. So again, it's really new. That was my caution up front, is when you see this thing, you're going to see some slides that are even like garbled, where I'm just putting pieces together. I don't want to lose my information. I'm typing away, and
that's
But
normal.
it's time to get this thing. But it's time to get this thing cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be kind of, I think it's kind of becoming clear what, how to break it up. And so you got a lot of good information. That's just about kind of dividing it in a way that's digestible, depending on where you are in the conversation,
Yeah, and as anybody working on stuff, like on our side, we send stuff off that we don't get comments back, we get worried.
Yeah.
We need people to go and say, no, this. Ah, okay, that's what we're looking for, is that.
Right. Right.
But as I mentioned earlier, it's hard to throw stuff in front of people just wording and saying this and this. You need to put a document like this out in front. People say, oh, okay, I got something I can comment on. And you can comment on the slides or an email and say, move here. I see slide this, do this. And it's a lot easier for people to do that, even the technical folks, once they see what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's where I think we're at right now, beside putting more of the basics together and getting that slide presentation. We know we have the 3 slides. That's almost like a flyer, but we need more depth on slides to mention some of the points that you gave out and so forth. So.
Yep. And I'm gonna have to hop at the top of the hour here.
Yeah.
But I think, Jeff, you got a lot of good information. That's the good news. And so now it's just a matter of kind of organizing it, kind of siphoning it down. And I think that we kind of talked. I think what we talked about will get you where you need to be at a high level, great. Right? Okay. It's a lot of legwork to get there, but I think you're on the right path.
Okay, good. That's good feedback. Thanks.
Absolutely. And thanks again for presenting. It's really good to kind of see the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for sending this up so we can show what we're doing.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let us know. Keep us in the loop on how things are going.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
all.